Hey everyone, it's Ray from the Teach Better team, and I have, drumroll please, Tiffany out with me. How you doing, Tiff?
I am doing good. It is Thursday night, so I am happy because it's Mastery Chat. Even, it's a chaotic night here in the Ott household, and even with all that, I still enjoy getting online with my PLN and chatting with people who are really intelligent and really careful and conscious of how they are as a teacher and the decisions they make. And so it's inspiring to me to be able to see all of the great conversations from the chat. I love every Thursday, so it's good.
Well, Tiff, I know we had some tech issues earlier, but the entire group that was there when we were talking about the chat before it happened wished you like all the love because we know that today's your favorite day. And the fact that you had tech issues earlier is just silly. On your favorite day, you should never have tech issues.
I know, it's not fair.
You were great in the chat, though. It seemed like everything got resolved, and now you're here. And Katie even commented she's so happy you're here because Mastery Chat isn't the same if Tiff's not there.
We all know that Mastery Chat's my baby, and I love it very dearly. It's like my fave. So and I just have to joke, Miss Instructional Technology degree and technology hates her. So, it is what it is. It's kind of like my MO lately that tech hates me, but I'm here and it's good.
Yeah. Woo. No worries. Well, this is funny. Oh. Katie says hardest chat ever for me. I guess we should probably talk about Mastery Chat. I don't know that it was the hardest, but I love when we have topics that create controversy. And this one did.
It's my favorite. Like when I haven't moderated a chat in ages, but anytime I'm moderating a chat, because we have so many great moderators now, it's like we used to have to put ourselves in chats all the time, but we have so many awesome moderators that there's not really room for us to moderate anymore. But I always used to design, which is a beautiful problem to have. But designing a chat that addresses a controversial issue and can have some disagreement is really Twitter chats at their finest, I think, when it can be done in a way that is civil discourse and where it can be done in a way that propels the conversation forward, even when it can be slightly uncomfortable at times. It's just beauty when that happens. Hi, Jeff. I see that you said hi. Oh, Allison says two of my favorites. Now, I'm not sure if she's talking about us because we are fabulous or if she's talking about controversy in Twitter chats because those are two of my favorite things.
They were probably all what she's talking about, but I can celebrate that Allison just joined our private Facebook group,
Yay!
Which I was so excited to share that she had joined the group right before we went live. So Allison, you rock.
Well, and who else was it? Was it Tammy?
Yes.
Tammy, who wasn't in our Facebook group, and I was like, Tammy, how are you not in
Mastery Chat since the birth of Mastery Chat?
I know. She's one of the OGs, right?
Totally true. Well, I always enjoy Mastery Chat previews because we get to talk about what the chats might be about. But when we do our recaps afterwards, it's always fun to actually dive into what we saw in the chat. So, Tiffany, I'm going to start with asking you, was there anything about this chat that you were excited or surprised about?
So I was really excited because, as you know, Ray, I have taught 3rd grade through 10th grade. And the philosophies and approaches to homework at each of those ages is really different. And there's a lot of competing schools of thought on the role of homework and how you use homework effectively. Allison, we love you too. Yay. Anyway, and so for me, I'm always very curious in a chat about homework or in anytime educators are debating homework. Okay, what grade do you teach and how does that affect your perspective and how should it affect your perspective? And I think that we have a really nice blend of elementary, middle, and high school teachers and administrators in our chat. And if you're talking 1st graders versus 10th graders, the answers that you have are going to be to a certain extent different. And so that's always something I'm looking for. Okay, so what is your frame of reference and how is that impacting the way you are having this chat right now?
Can I pick your brain that might take us off topic slightly for Mastery Chat?
Sure.
And then we'll go back.
Yeah.
So do you think that the philosophies should be different, or do you think they just so happen to be different because the culture is different in 2nd grade typically than like a 10th grade. Will you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah, so research really strongly supports the idea that homework in elementary school, besides reading, and not even like reading logs or, you know, just reading to read, that is a positive, effective homework assignment in younger grades, especially when it's read with your family or, you know, just something like that. Homework beyond that, in anything below 4th grade, below 3rd grade, depending on who you talk to, just really doesn't support student learning very much at all. However, when you get into upper grades, when you get into high school, there is some indication that certain kinds of homework and certain kinds of outside of class experiences can contribute to the learning experience a little bit better. And so I think it has to be done very carefully. I think at any grade, if you're talking about, you know, you and I are math teachers, right? And math homework is almost like its own little beast. But if you're talking about assigning 60 questions or 40 questions for math homework, or, you know, this section every other odd, and then taking that homework as a grade, and using that to inform your classroom evaluation of a student, I feel like that's very problematic. If homework is more of a continued exploration or a preview of something to come, or a, why don't you identify what you need, and then here's some resources that can help you as you explore this further on your own, I think that's getting into into territory that could be beneficial if done well. So that's kind of where some of those differences lie in the ages.
Sure. And I love that you not only touched on a lot of different varieties of homework options, a lot of different student choice essentially is what you built in later on in your upper grades evaluation, but also the concept of how this is researched. Like, we have this topic, it's a hot topic, it created a great discussion because there's legitimate research that people are quoting when they're making these decisions. So when you have educators all in I was going to say all in a room, even though we're all virtual on Twitter. Like, when you have educators all in a room talking about this topic, there's a lot of people who are like, this is my opinion because this is what my school's opinion is. And it's like, okay, but what's your education or philosophy on this? Like, where does the research say, and how have you built your classroom to support how you can reach your students effectively? So this was interesting for a lot of different levels, but you definitely hit on a lot of them that made it interesting.
Yeah, and I think the conversation becomes really easy if you are early elementary. Brianne is commenting that she's 1st grade and that 2nd grade next year, her homework is going to be reading only. And if you're early elementary, it's a really, really easy question to answer, or at least it should be. It gets really murky in middle school. That's where I feel like it gets really tough to decide. What you have thoughts? Tell me your thoughts.
These are my people, middle school.
I know.
Gosh, I just, this idea, you said this analogy earlier, but you were like, if you're assigning 60 problems at night or a page of every other, that is not an issue of homework in my mind. Okay. That is an issue of purpose and relevance. Where are you finding this tool and why do you need evidence of 60 problems? Or why are the odd problems most effective on that page? Or where is this worksheet coming from that's showing you something? And then in your example you said earlier, you were like, and then taking it for a grade. That's a whole separate issue. That's nothing to do with homework. That has to do with how are you evaluating students' effectiveness in their, mastery development, right? Like, there's so many concepts that we throw into this idea of homework, when in reality, it's not the homework that's the problem. It's the, why are you assigning it? What are you assigning? What type of value are you trying to get from the student from doing this task? I don't know. I think that's why I got on my high horse for my tweet that I was sharing out, that created a lot of discussion that I was busy with on the chat. I got totally sidetracked, but it was all about like students assigning themselves homework based on their personalized learning pathway that we're building. And so with that being said, it's like, your analogy of assigning homework of every other problem or whatever, I really think that while people consider that to be homework, there's so many other like minute issues that are with that spiral into something else.
So then let me ask you a question. If we were to boil it down to just a definition of homework as being, there's a bug, sorry, as being something that, as the idea of students continuing learning outside of the standard class period, and we remove all of the complicating factors of, is it for a grade? What exactly does it look like? All of this kind of stuff. How do you feel about the statement, if somebody were to say, I think that it is beneficial for students to continue an exploration of their learning outside of class hours? Because that in and of itself is also something that has a lot of room for debate, but that's about as pure a definition of homework as you can get.
Yeah, so I actually, if you're talking about that strictly definition, I live, eat, and breathe that. I want that. I mean, with my classroom, my students are set up in 25 different themed internships for the purpose of them being able to walk outside of my classroom and see their content in action. I want them to actually see that they are learning to operate with decimals in math class, and then they're leaving the classroom seeing that they're doing a McDonald's internship and saying they use decimals there. Like that's literally how I've built my philosophy on education. The difference is, and you brought this up, which is phenomenal. The difference is that there is a way to do everything in education wrong. There is a way to be an awful teacher. There is a way to start your class off awful. There is a way to teach horribly. And there is a way to assign homework, in my opinion, wrong. So I think that to your point, a lot of the Twitter chat today, the discussion was, how do you do this effectively with relevance so that it can be put in those terms of furthering explanation or furthering your, knowledge base outside of the classroom.
Well, and I really love how Erik's first question kind of laid that groundwork early in the chat, because his first question, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was like, how should or do you assign homework? It wasn't, should you assign homework? It was, how should you do it? So it kind of removed that homework bad, homework good kind of like dichotomy, was like, how should we be doing it? And I really liked, I always, having written chat questions myself, I always just have a special spot in my heart when somebody really gets how to build a chat really beautifully. And it's almost the same way, like when you create a lesson and you've built this learning experience and you're like, yes, that's it. Like when I see mastery chat questions that have that beautiful flow, I get really excited.
Well, and to that point, and I want to get to Katie's comment. So 1 second, Katie. Yes. To that point though, Twitter chats is our professional development for teachers. And teachers work tirelessly day in, day out to develop really rich lesson plans for the students where they're facilitating learning. But then sometimes we get to professional development and we go back to the old ways where it's like a sit and get mentality, or we're asking, depth of knowledge questions that are like at a 1 and 2 level, when we really should be challenging each other to create and design and have that higher order thinking, just like we do in our lesson plan. So you're right. When you get a Twitter host that is like, I'm going to actually facilitate discussion versus bring up ideas on a topic, there's a complete difference.
Yeah, and it's so fun to see that. So let's talk about what Katie said, because I think she wrote a book.
Okay. Can you read it? Do you want me to read it?
I can read it. I think why this chat was so hard was because I just think our time can be used more wisely to better benefit students. If you assign homework because you're chasing that 2% higher test scores, I think there are other ways to achieve the increase and increase student motivation and excitement for learning. For example, using that time to create relevant lessons, personalized learning, differentiation. Just my opinion, and I don't know if grade would change my opinion on this. And so Katie's getting to that, like homework for homework's sake, or homework because there's another thing people do with homework that drives me nuts, and it's I don't have enough time to get to the content, so we're going to do it in homework. Or like,
what? Hold on.
Oh, you haven't heard that?
No, and I hate that. What did you just say?
Oh my God. I don't have time to practice the skill during class, so you have to do the practice outside of class. Or I don't have time. Okay, so again, you know how I've taught many grades. So at high school, this is a real sticky point and a real challenge, especially when you are in some content areas that have had AP tests where the AP syllabus is so insanely absurd that it is impossible to adequately discuss the content of the course. There are many instances where it's like, I'm teaching you this, now you got to figure it out on your own because tomorrow we're going on to the next topic. And so homework sometimes becomes this extension of the time in order to get through more content. And I think that that is incredibly problematic. And actually, there was a whole side thread in the chat that was about, oh gosh, Hayward. Was it John Hayward maybe who said,
Hayward. Illinois guy.
Yeah, that's true. I know you love Illinois. I don't know if
there's a lot of
or not.
Illinois in there today. I'm just saying, shout out to Illinois teachers.
I hope this isn't a misattribution of who said it, but something about this is going to hurt some people, but teach less content and go deeper. And it's that idea of, you know, what's the phrase? A mile wide and an inch deep, right? And the idea of get through the content. And I do know that sometimes homework becomes, we just have to get through the content. So we can't do this in class. And that is, in my mind, that's a non-negotiable, that's a problem.
So Tiffany, the interesting component of that is that, you know, I was going to say we built Mastery Chat. Really, you built Mastery Chat as we were focusing on mastery learning. That was a core philosophy that the Teach Better team believed in. And so when it came to creating a Twitter chat, you were like, let's do Mastery Chat because that's a focus. So when you're talking about that high school mentality of trying to get through content, or even just that mentality at all of just like pacing, right? Like, let's just simplify it to pacing. How does that blend into a class that has a fundamental pillar of mastering content?
Yeah, and
this is a hard conversation. Katie, you were right. This was harder than we thought.
No, it is it's a constant balancing act and compromise and trying to. So on one hand, high school presents these difficulties, but I am very fortunate to be in a position where I have a lot of freedom in terms of the content and how the content is explored and like the pacing of the content, if you will. So for me, in my unique situation, I'm able to find that blend very well because I'm also not teaching a class that is at all related to an AP course or an AP exam. And when you're in high school and you're dealing with college credit, you're dealing with all of these different things, it just adds this layer of insanity. And I have been fortunate to remove myself from some of that. I think that there's things you can do as an individual teacher, where those of you who don't know, I'm kind of a bit of a rebel when it comes to people telling me to do things that I don't agree with. So I would, in that case, just be like, nope, sorry, not going to do that. So that's my advice to AP teachers who say they have to get through the content. But there's also some organizational level kind of things that some schools are doing where they're moving away from kind of that AP intense content focus. And this is something that I think the admins that are a part of our Mastery Chat and part of our PLN need to be very aware of, moving away from that AP mindset and more towards the deeper dive mindset. So I feel like that's a trend that's starting to happen, especially as more and more colleges move away from accepting AP test scores, which I think is just a really interesting development.
Yeah.
It's just so convoluted, right? Which is why we spend hours every single week talking about this kind of stuff.
I know, and we moved everywhere from all over this conversation of homework, which is how we started for those of you just joining us now. That's talking about homework to now going into the perception and how we can focus on mastery and all those other pieces. So let's think back into the chat about homework, where there was 1,000 side conversations. Is there anything that you were in the chat that you felt just extremely relevant, needs to be brought up in our discussion? You're maybe surprised by it or just really enjoyed the conversation?
Yeah, so towards the end of the conversation, I started getting more and more into the side conversations and less in. Sorry, there's fireworks, which startled me because it's a random night for fireworks. Anyway.
Happy 4th of July.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's very distracting, but it's, hey, I'll get over it. I thought the question about how should you modify learning in your classroom to incorporate more time for independent practice, discussion, and feedback. I thought that was a really interesting question, and I thought that I was very pleased and excited to see a lot of people's responses about how they're ensuring that that feedback cycle is a part of their actual class, which I think is really, really important. I loved the question 5, what should students do if they don't understand part of the homework? And this is something that I work really, really hard on, and I have varying levels of success in terms of building a resource library for my students, and more importantly, teaching my students how to cope if they don't understand, and attempting to build this kind of independent self-advocacy collaboration that is really the important part of homework that I give my students. And a lot of times the homework that I give, if I give homework, is Adam Yankai is a colleague of mine. He's in Mastery Chat a lot. His name is Amri, something like that. But he does something called Mathicognition, where it's a reflective back and forth dialogue between teacher and student about, here's who I am as a math student, and here's how I'm growing as a math student, and here's my reflection on X, Y, or Z. And so that is something that I love having as a homework, where I say, hey, I just want you to go reflect for 20 minutes and talk to me about this topic. And maybe the topic is, yeah, we just had grades and comments come out, and what do you think about this comment, and was I wrong? Was I right? Or, share your thoughts on that. Or one might be, I loved this one. I did this once. I said, imagine on a random day, I got up and left the classroom for 20 minutes. What would happen? What would you do? What would your peers do? And excuse me, using homework as a tool to help develop some of that reflective and very thoughtful student that we're trying to get to. I think that was really interesting, but that was totally off topic again.
No, because what you did, Tiff, is you started looking at homework as not a content focus and more of teaching the whole child focus.
Yeah.
We have students in our classroom, and when we talk about homework, even in this chat, it was very content driven. It was talking about how to do it well, how to create equity, which Katie just brought up in her comments, and how to overdo it or underdo, right? That was but it was all focused on content. And very rarely, except for you're right, in question 6, it came up more, was it about that whole child mentality? How can we blend in the essential skills of teaching our students ownership, or how to cope, or how to be advocates for their learning? Those pieces can be in homework too. And so I don't know if that was off topic at all. I think that's wonderful to bring up.
Well, and I love, you mentioned what Katie just brought up about the equity piece. And Katie, Ray and I always laugh because it's like we're in totally different chats when we talk about what conversations we were in. And Katie, I did see a lot of conversations about the equity piece of homework and the stark differences in students' lives when they are outside of school, and how it is absolutely absurd of us in education to think that every child in our room is going to have continuous learning as a priority when they leave the school building. And I think you do not have to dig very deep to find really stunning research into the very negative impact that homework can have on students in certain situations, and not negative academically, but also negatively in the sense that, and when I say negatively academically, because if they're not doing their homework and they're getting zeros and that's being interpreted in their grade, big problem, but also negatively because we are not a kid's whole life. And I feel like sometimes we live on the assumption that we are, and I think that does a lot of disservice to our students and makes them feel very undervalued in terms of who they are. That I'm not merely your student. I'm Joe, or I am Susie, or I am, whoever I am, and I have a much different life. And I think if we're trying to build our students up as individual human beings who are advocates for their own journey, And then we kind of lay this, I don't care what's going on in your life, you have to do this 5-page essay on 3 days from now. I mean, that's pretty ignorant of us to think that, I don't know. I just think it's foolish of us to think that we should expect that of our students and all of our students. I just don't think it makes sense.
Tiffany, I have loved listening to all the moving pieces of this conversation. This is why I love that we do a recap after, because I thought this was an amazing chat. I got so much out of it. But even just listening to you now for the past 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, there's so many more layers that we could even continue to talk through. And I just, this is always so beneficial for me when I'm learning on Thursdays, and hopefully somebody else is getting something out of this, but it's always so fun. I do want to make sure we kind of touch on a few things, and then we're going to need to end our night because it's Mastery Chat. And
I know, because I could just chat, and I have to like.
And I love it.
Me up on my soapbox.
And we will. So what I want to touch on is that we had a lot in this chat that we touched on 1,000 different topics, right? Even in our conversation, this wasn't just about homework. This is about a lot of different components of our classroom and how to do it better. If you are not a part of our private Facebook group, it's just Teach Better Team. You have to request to join and like say that you're a teacher essentially. And when you're in there, we are trying to figure out how to get you more free professional development. We are doing a lot of live sessions this summer on a lot of topics that came up today, whether it be feedback, assessment, student ownership, the grid method, the mastery framework we use, depth of knowledge. I mean, all these things, starting your year off right. So we're doing a lot of live sessions. The dates are already chosen. It's essentially once a week, all summer. And whether you're able to join us live, the videos will also be saved, just like our Mastery Chat videos that you're watching right now are always saved for you. And we hope that that adds value, because these Twitter chats are just like tastes. But really, when we get time to go in a deeper dive, hopefully you guys find the value that we hope you get out of it.
I know we do.
I know. Also, I want to just highlight, this might be a spoiler, Tiff, but we won't give away everything. We have a brand new course coming out next week.
I love new courses.
Yes, we're not going to tell you what it's on, but we are going to tell you that details will be coming out next week. And so if you are a member of our Teach Better Academy, or if you want to just join, just go to teachbetteracademy.com. It's our online learning portal, essentially. It has a ton of different courses on there. And there's a brand new one that we are announcing next week.
Lots of really good stuff up there. I know, because I do a lot of the editing for the videos, so it makes me really happy to see all those courses go up there.
Yeah, we are so excited. So on top of the live professional development, go join our private Facebook group. Definitely keep your eyes out for the new course. Twitter chat again next week. There was a question if Twitter chats continue throughout the summer. I want to confirm every week is Mastery Chat. We love Mastery Chat. It's not ending just because the school year ends.
Yeah, we and just so you all know, we do not cancel Mastery Chat. Like, it's like every Thursday you can count on it. Even if nobody else is there, we'll be there hanging out, Mastery chatting. So we love it. We love you guys. You guys are an amazing group of teachers that I still find it a little bit surreal and odd that they all learn from us, because I feel like we learn from them more than anything else. And I just, I love having this group of people that teach me so much every single day. It is a blessing to be a part of this. Truly.
It is a blessing. We hope you guys have an amazing Thursday. Please have a wonderful time. Relax, rejuvenate with your families tonight. And we will be back to impacting students tomorrow morning. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And stay strong. If you need anything, let us know.
Absolutely. Always. Bye, guys.
See ya.